Comments. Let's get to Rick Santelli, not Mike Santoli. Rick Santelli in Chicago. Hey, Rick.
Yes, not Santoli, Rick Santelli at the SIBO. And you know what? At 12:40 Eastern, a little late, we saw Chairman Bernanke in front of the Economic Club of New York. As you look at the charts, you can see at 12:40 Eastern, we had vol. The initial reaction was hope. Rates went down. But ultimately, rates are higher across the curve post-Powell. But the big news today, yield curves are flattening. No matter what permutation, what combination you pick, whether it's 2s to 10s, minus low 20s, that's the flattest it's been, least inverted since third week in January. 2s to 30s, hovering right around zero. It hasn't been at that level really since the third weekend in January, and we all know why. The market's going to pay a lot more attention to what's going on with the election without all the blaring negativity of Main Street media. Chem.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
Obviously, it's been a wild weekend. I'm older. Joe Kernan's older. We remember all the things that happened in the 60s and 70s assassinations. It's horrible. We never want to get back to that. But it did have a minor impact on the market, yield curve steepening, and other issues.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be watching kind of gold and tips. There's a break-even story that's happened under the hood. I think people are getting a little bit more nervous about what this means. It's not just about Trump being elected, right? Like those odds have been in there for a while. It's much like Reagan. Once the assassination attempt happened, he had a much bigger, stronger ability to pass policy. So I think that's really important. And
downstream, some of the other issues on the ticket are probably going to potentially go more towards the Republican side. What about the VIX? I'm not surprised that the VIX isn't doing much, but a lot of people were. You've always had a good handle on volatility.
Yeah, we've talked about the steepener in the yield curve, right? That's happening because they're talking about lowering interest rates in the short term, but what that might mean for inflation long term, right? Similar here in the vol curve. The vol curve is steepening, right? It's steepening because there's more uncertainty down the line because of some of the things happening. But in the short term, this means more certainty, and there's a lot more flow dynamics that are creating compressed volatility in the short term. So I think that's also an interesting dynamic to look for as you look.
You know, they call it the Donald Trump trade. It's not the Donald Trump trade. What it is that maybe we'll actually start to see more coverage of issues instead of pointing at the other guy with all this negativity. And the more you point at issues, the more you're going to be pointing to debt and deficits.
Agreed. I mean, whether it's Biden or Trump, the spending is out of control, right? And that's going to continue because we're in this populist environment where people want more money and want more inequality fixed. So I think that's not going to change. The rhetoric may come down. There may be more unanimity. But at the end of the day, that actually might mean we have more spending and more of the problems that we've been seeing in a more accelerated fashion.
And it also might mean that we'll do less spending. We won't necessarily raise taxes on business. And populism, another word for that, could be patriotism. Chem, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for joining me today. Joe Kernan, what are you doing there in the afternoon? Back to you.